I think there may be some fines coming for Alvin Gentry. But Richard, does he have a point?
I don't know if fines are, because he's saying all they did was enforce the rule, but it is a stupid rule. And let me say this why. It's kind of like the Tuck rule. Sometimes things happen and then they have to tweak the rule. They have never seen anything like this. Look, to De'Aaron Fox's credit, he looks up and he's like, yo, the clock has started, because a lot of times players, what they will do is they will allow the ball to bounce, let their guys go, and then De'Aaron Fox can get a full head start. So he points this out and they're like, well, by the letter of the law, and this is real, without clear possession, it turns into a jump ball. But that is not what the rule was trying to accomplish, and ultimately it went against Sacramento in the worst time possible. But the referees, they're just following the rules, and rules are rules.
They're just doing their job. But Perk, should the rules change?
The rules should change. I mean, look, it's a lot of rules in place. It's a lot of rules that have been in place even when I was playing that I didn't abide by, that I didn't like. And I think one thing we do know about Adam Silver, in my opinion, is the best commissioner in sports. And I feel like the way that he's been working with the Players Association on multiple things, I feel like that they will come together and figure out a way to resolve this. I mean, I'm glad Coach Gentry spoke up in his post-game interview. He always speaks his mind. Great person, great coach. I played for him with the Pelicans. But, you know, I feel like Adam Silver would do his job like he always do and make the necessary adjustments.
Well, let's take a look at the other side, because the Lakers, they only had 5 turnovers last night. Westbrook, no turnovers, as I mentioned, for the first time since 2016. So, Perk, was this the version of Westbrook that the Lakers are going to need to win a title?
I mean, yeah, but look, here's the thing, right? I overreact to Russ. The world overreact to Russ. Russ has already shown us who he is, and that's okay. Okay, Russ is a guy that if he's up at base, he's going to go for the home run or he's going to strike out. He's not okay with going to first base or not okay with going with second base, and that's okay. So at the end of the day, look, Russ is a guy that plays with high energy. He plays with a lot of speed. At times, he's going to have a lot of turnovers because this is who Russell Westbrook is. Now, is this the right way to play? Is this going to win you championships? Absolutely not. And here's another thing, Malika. Since Richard is not listening and being disrespectful, here's another thing. When we talk about the Lakers, let's not overreact to them winning a couple games, you know, because when you go back and look at their 20 games, a lot of those 20 games, except for 2 of them, was against teams below 500. Like, they don't have quality wins yet for me to just jump up and say, oh, this is how Russ need to play. He did it against the Sacramento Kings, the same Sacramento Kings that Coach Gentry had to apologize to the fans for because of how poorly they played in front of them at home.
Oh, well, Alvin Gentry should never apologize, Malika. First of all, this is a poorly constructed team. Like, they're not that good of a team, so good for them. I will say this about Russ. He was 7 for 19. He was 7 for 19. And yes, while he had 0 turnovers, he also had 2 assists. Is this the MVP Russ that they brought in? Is this the triple-double monster that we've seen for the last 7-8 years? No. Russ has to find a happy medium. He can't go 0 assists, 2 turnovers, 7 for 19 and pat himself on the back. Russ demands more of himself than that, and so do the Lakers. So it's okay to dial it all the way back. Look, if I'm turning the ball over 7-8 times, it's okay to reset and be like, hey, look, I'm just going to score. I'm just going to make the obvious play. I'm not going to go full steam ahead all the time like we see Russ, but this is not one of those things where we should be patting him on his back for 0 turnovers when he only had 2 assists. Means he wasn't being aggressive.
Well, there's a happy medium here, right? Because the Lakers don't need him to be that triple-double king that he was. And now it's like, okay, well, you were having all of these turnovers. He needs to meet here. So maybe last night was a game that can go towards that reset of finding the happy medium. And then there's LeBron. So he had another big game, 31 points, his 730-plus game in the last 8. So he's averaging 36.9 minutes per game, his most since he's been with the Lakers. So here's what he said about his workload after the game.
I'm just trying to watch my minutes at times, but we also need to win ball games as well. So I feel pretty good. I don't feel like that I'm playing 37 minutes a game or whatever. And it's also not the record for me. So my average season, we average 42 and a half for a whole season. So I even got a most minutes for the season plaque at my house. You didn't even know they gave those out, did you?
A plaque. All right. Well, LeBron's 36.9 minutes per game are on pace to be the third most in a player's age 37 season or older, trailing only Karl Malone and Michael Jordan from the early 2000s. So LeBron's 28.6 points per game are 5 more than anybody has
Trailing
ever
Jordan.
averaged at this age. So if we're talking about LeBron, we have to bring in senior writer and host of the Hoop Collective podcast, Brian Windhorst. So, Windy, what LeBron is doing right now, do you think that's sustainable?
You know, Malika, I've been asking that question for a decade now, and his answer has always been the same. I know my body better than anybody else, and I will do what I think I can do. You could argue that the injuries he's had since he's been in LA, that groin injury and the abdominal injury, potentially could be related to overwork. But LeBron believes that he knows what he's doing. He's going to continue to do this. And what he said is important there. Even though these games are against teams like the Kings, they are must-win games for the Lakers. Because if you look at their schedule coming up, they have got a brutal rest of this month, especially the back half of this month. They've got a road trip out east where they are going to probably take some losses. And that means the games against the Kings, and they play them again coming up in a few days. Games against the Pacers. They have the Hawks, who are really scuffling coming in. They got to win those games because they have kicked away some games early in the season, and they know they're not going to have Anthony Davis. So when they get a winnable game at home and LeBron James can smell a victory, he's got to take it. And that's why he played so hard in the fourth quarter last night, and I expect him to continue to do so.
Absolutely. Richard, do you think that this is a sustainable load for him?
I think it's sustainable, but this is why they brought in Russell Westbrook, is so that you didn't have to do this type of load.
Sure.
You want to kind of balance him and Anthony Davis. Obviously, Anthony Davis is out. But at the end of the day, if LeBron is having to put forth a heroic effort against the Kings in the fourth quarter to get a victory at home, there are still problems in LA. They have not figured it out. We can talk about how great he is. We can talk about his numbers. But ultimately, they are still not playing quality basketball.
Well, and that's when it comes to, Perk,
Thank
you
you.
good?
Wow.
You're saying you're agreeing? Are you sure?
No. Yes, I'm agreeing with RJ because, look, the Lakers their team is constructed for one reason and one reason only, and that's to win a championship. But you know what I will say? I want to say this real quick. LeBron James is actually delivering a message, in my opinion, to Anthony Davis and showing him that this is how you play the center position because LeBron is embracing it with open arms. It looked like he's having great joy playing the center position, rolling to the basket, setting screens, anchoring the defense, talking the coverages. And so what he's saying is that, hey, look, I'm going to show you how to embrace it. So when you come back, I want that same energy out of you.
Doing what needs to be done so his teammates will do the same.
The Memphis Grizzlies are the only team led by Ja Morant to beat the top 3 teams in the Western Conference on their home court. So when I look at what Ja Morant is doing, his leadership, his swagger, Jay, you a big social media guy. He's that guy that goes on social media and talk that big talk and back it up the next game. He's one of the most unguardable guys in the league today. He's a generational talent. And if I had to pick an MVP today, next Monday may change, but today, right now, it's Ja Morant. G12.
G12. So all that MVP talk, that was before Ja did what he did last night in Cleveland. He scored 6 of his 26 points in the final 30 seconds, including the go-ahead basket. Memphis has now won 6 straight games. And get this, 4 of them, speaking of strength of opponents, are against the Suns, the Lakers, the Nets, and the Cavs. So here was Ja after the game on his mindset.
I don't fear nobody, dog. I don't care if you 7-7 or whatever. I'm coming straight at you.
All right, so I want to go back. I want to go back to what Perk said. Richard, do you agree with Perk that Ja could be the MVP?
Yeah, anything's possible. Like, anything is possible. We're not going to do it. Let's go by step. Let's go All-Star, All-NBA, and then MVP. Right now,
So All-Star this season.
Yeah, I think without a doubt he's
Yes.
an All-Star this season, and I think he continues playing this way. Then we're going to talk about him being an All-NBA performer, and possible Most Improved. And then the next step, MVP is not far off, but I do not have him in that conversation, not yet. Now, when the facts change, so will my opinion. But right now, he is a bit outside that race.
Perk.
I just want to know why. Like you can't just come here and tell me, just come on here and say the reigning Western Conference Player of the Week is just not in the MVP conversation when he has ran through majority of the NBA. Every time he steps on the floor with another MVP candidate, he always come out victorious or always come out on top. I'm just not understanding why is he not in the conversation. You can't just say he's not in my conversation without actually giving an explanation.
First of all, if we're going to say this, if we're going to talk about Jokic, we're going to talk about Kevin Durant, we're going to talk about Steph Curry. Like, these are the people that have a step above him. It takes a minute to get into that conversation. I am not disrespecting him. What is your issue right now?
I didn't say you was disrespecting them, but Malika, here it is, right? Because I'm done talking with RJ. So here's the thing. Throughout this season, so many players are playing so well that I feel like every month we're going to have this MVP conversation, okay?
Right.
You know, last month I was picking Kevin Durant. Okay, so then all of a sudden, Kevin Durant come out of protocol. He hasn't been playing well. Neither has Steph over the last 2 weeks. But I know who has been playing well and who team has elevated is Ja Morant.
Yeah.
So how can he not enter the conversation?
Really quickly,
That's
this is why, and this is no discredit to Ja. Part of the reason why his team excelled when he was out, and I will never disrespect Ja and hold that against him, but it's not like he missed time, his team struggled,
but
he
isn't
came
there
back
something to be said of picking up, just because we've seen, going into COVID protocols, and he was injured on top of the COVID protocols, and that's a compounded thing. But seeing players come back from these COVID protocols, it shouldn't be taken for granted, right, that they're going to come back as the exact same player they was before. We heard LaMarcus Aldridge talk today just about how taxing it was on his body to go through that. So shouldn't that be almost factored in, the fact that he is coming back the same player, even though his team was able to stay afloat without him? Well,
look, at the end of the day, Perk and I don't have votes. I understand why he doesn't. I probably deserve one. But this is the biggest issue with this, is that you can't go 1 week it's this guy, 1 week it's that guy. We understand that as this season progresses, you have to maintain this level of excellence. And he has yet to do that. And I'm not saying that he won't. I'm just saying merely that it's too early to be like, he's in this conversation. He just got back. He missed 2 weeks.
No, but bro, that is so not accurate. For the simple fact that when the season first started, I remember us doing a segment on NBA Today on this show about Ja Morant and what he was doing and for why he was averaging X amount of points for his. He had upped his points by almost 10 points a game at the start of the season, leading the league in points in the paint, and then he got hurt and went into the protocol. DeMar DeRozan went into the protocol. The Bulls kept excelling. Do you have him in the MVP conversation, Richard?
No.
You don't have DeMar DeRozan in the MVP conversation. Well, that's a whole different conversation.
DeMar, it's early. It's early.
Here's the thing. I had this conversation with Doris Burke a couple of weeks ago about the MVP narrative. When we start having these discussions so long before the MVP is actually voted on, is there room for people to change their minds? Because at the beginning of the season, it was Steph Curry, and it was very clear the reason why. Kevin Durant nipping at his heels, Giannis Antetokounmpo in that conversation. So if you look at the total body of work, if Ja Morant keeps this up,
that's the key. Keep it up.
Keeping it up. All right, well, if you think we are done talking about Ja Morant, talking about Kyrie, or situation of having Kyrie as home court advantage versus road court advantage, is that something that Kevin Durant or James Harden or players even think about?
Yeah, you have to think about it because your style of play is going to be consistent, especially when you have a James Harden and when you have a Kevin Durant. Like, you have a way that you're playing very similar to what they did this last year. But this year it's going to be, I think, more conversations. As coaches, you have to have more conversation with the other players. Like, hey, look, on the road, when Kyrie's playing, this is probably going to be the lineup. This is what we're going to do. At home, you're going to get more minutes, more opportunities. So it's more of the next group of guys that you have to make sure that communication is very set and very clear, because it's difficult. Role players need systems and need rhythm. And with Kyrie coming in and out of the lineup, it can affect the role players.
Right. So, Brian, what are the long-term ramifications then of this strategy for Brooklyn?
You know, Richard, you and Perk are talking about this with a lot of nuance. I don't think we've ever seen anything like this in the modern history of the NBA, and I have no idea how it's going to work. And I really have no idea how it's going to work if this is status quo when we come to the playoffs, where the Nets are going to be like, do we want home court advantage?
Right.
Or do we want Kyrie advantage? Because I think you'd rather have Kyrie in a Game 7 even if it was on the road versus playing at home. And this whole home road thing, their schedule is difficult because of the lost games due to COVID. For example, Malika, you just showed that their next road game after tonight is at Portland. Well, guess what? They have the most insane back-to-back I've ever seen in my time in the NBA. They play at home on Sunday afternoon in Brooklyn, and they play Monday in Portland, Oregon. That is a back-to-back, New York and Portland. If I'm Nets, I'm not even sending Harden and Durant out to Portland. I'll say I'll meet you in Chicago. So I don't even know who's going to play in that game. So yes, bottom line, is half a Kyrie better than no Kyrie? Yes. That this is going to work and lead them to their championship aspirations, I don't know, guys.
Well, this is going to be one of those discussions like around the bubble. Is it harder, a championship, to win it when you had a part-time Kyrie? Is it easier if you had a part-time Kyrie? There are so many questions still swirling around the situation, including how COVID continues to change and adapt in the country. Are we going to see New York's laws continue to tighten up like we've been seeing recently with the new variant? Or are they going to change to allow him to play more games? Or is he going to get vaccinated and play more games? There are so many questions here. Richard, can you just stand by for just a second? Because Brian, since it's officially 2022, I do want to look ahead to a big date that is looming on the NBA calendar, and that is the trade deadline, which is a little over a month away. And they're starting to heat up a little bit. So I want to start with the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're currently 6th in the East, but are they going to be buyers or sellers before the trade deadline?
Boy, it sounds like buyers, Malika. As I talk to people around the league, the Cavs are one of the most active teams. They're talking to 3 or 4 different teams about scenarios. They want perimeter players. They want guards. They've obviously had Ricky Rubio and Colin Sexton out for the year. And they've got Rubio's contract now, $16 million. And they have a couple of valuable draft picks. They've got their first-round pick this year if they want to move it. Plus, they have the Houston Rockets second-round pick and the San Antonio Spurs second-round pick. You package those together with that Rubio contract, you may be able to find some help on the perimeter for this year. So the Cavs are being very active. I would almost guarantee that they're going to make deals beyond what they just did for Rajon Rondo.
Okay, so then let's move to the West, to the Lakers. You're hearing that the Lakers are making calls, but what exactly are they looking to do here?
Yeah, so they already offloaded a player in Rondo to create a roster spot, and they are looking to do more of that, Malika. From teams that I've talked to, they are out there with LeBron starting at center and eventually getting Anthony Davis back. They are looking to move DeAndre Jordan, not necessarily for another player, but to move him so that they can open up a roster spot. Kent Bazemore is another player that they've been willing to talk about in talking to some other teams. And I think, again, their goal is open up a roster spot. The Rondo move looks like it was going to be designed for Stanley Johnson to fill, but they may look in the buyout market for another player or two. They're trying to figure out how to do that.
So from east to west, let's go back east because we saved a little bit of fireworks for last. I want to share some sound from Hawks GM Travis Schlenk, who was not in a very good mood yesterday morning. So take a listen.
You know, maybe it wasn't such a great idea to bring everybody back. Like, that's on me. And that's what, you know, we have a few weeks here before the trade deadline. That's what I need to figure out. You know, as you mentioned, it's, you know, there's only 2 times we can really make changes here, right? The draft, free agency, and the trade deadline. And, you know, it's my responsibility to put a product on the floor that can win. And right now I'm questioning whether or not I've done that. And maybe I need to lower my expectations for this team.
So, yeah, kind of went a little bit scorched earth there. Brian, what was the reaction around the league to those comments?
Well, the initial reaction when people heard it was, Travis, no, stop. What are you doing? Don't do that. You're saying the stuff that should stay private out loud. But I think this is a signal to the league that the Hawks are going to be open for business. They spent over $400 million to keep this core team together last offseason. And there are certain guys on their roster who are going to be untouchable. But the guy you got to keep an eye on is going to be Cam Reddish. That's a guy who has had some ups and downs in his career, has had some great games this year. Certainly if you're looking for a good young player, Cam Reddish could be your guy. And he's also due a contract extension. And I don't know if the Hawks can spend much more money. So I would look for possibly a shakeup involving Reddish. They could talk with some other players. I think they're looking to attack attach Solomon Hill to a deal so they could potentially get something more back. Danilo Gallinari maybe as well, but I would say that the Hawks are a team that's likely to do something as they continue to underachieve.
Well, especially because the last time I sat down with Trae Young, he said, I'm not going to be satisfied until we bring a championship to Atlanta. They set a high bar last season, and they're looking to avenge what happened at the end of it. And so the decision is going to be, is this current roster as constructed, as we just heard Travis Schlenk pontificate about, is it going to be one that we can win with moving forward? Brian Windhorst, thank you so much for joining the show today. Coming up, we have much more NBA Today. Cassidy Hubbarth joins us live ahead of the Warriors-Mavs game tonight. Cassidy spoke to Klay Thompson about his return after 2 years, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back to NBA Today. So as mentioned earlier in the show, the Nuggets host the Jazz, and that game will feature Nikola Jokic. That is tonight. Richard's already up. Is it possible that Nikola Jokic, Richard, is even better this year than his MVP season last year?
Okay, now look. The Nuggets reigning MVP Nikola Jokic is arguably having a better season than he had last year during his MVP campaign. His 32 per is on pace to be the best in a single season in NBA history. His numbers are absolutely insane. 25.7, 14 rebounds a night, 6.9 assists, just under 7. No player has ever averaged 25, 13, and 6 in a single season. His numbers are ridiculous. Now let's take a look at how he's getting it done. This man can move anywhere. Look, you see the score, you see the time. And look, he takes his time. He has a sweet spot everywhere on the floor. This is Valanciunas, another European that has been playing against him for 10 years, and there's nothing that you can do. But even here, look, he goes in there, and what I love, he box out. When you're on offense and you box out, but look, catch high, keep it high. Look, he has a 7'3" wingspan, but he uses his fingertips, keeps the ball alive. He's going against a former teammate, Plumlee. He knows what to expect from him, it doesn't matter. But this is where it begins a problem. You're supposed to load to the MVP. That's what you want to do. But what does an MVP do? He can throw an absolute dart to somebody in the corner. Who is that? I can't even see. Monte Morris, my guy. Love you, Monte. He is so impressive. In terms of efficiencies, they are basically plus 10 when he is on the floor, and they are minus 13 when he is off the floor. This is basically saying they are the Warriors when he is on the floor, and they are the 7-59 2012 Bobcats. So they're either the best team in the NBA when he's on the floor, or they historically one of the worst teams in NBA history when he's off the floor. Yes, he is having an MVP season, but you can't do it without help. That is the biggest problem that they're having right now. No Jamal Murray, no Michael Porter Jr. That is what is causing problems for their team. Do you hear me, Malika? I am yelling to the Raptors at how Oh, geez. I'm yelling to the Raptors. Perk, you got something to say?
Why? Yes, I do. Why are you up here giving breakdowns of big men? And if you're going to do it, show some other areas that can actually educate the audience, like, you know, his defensive ability, the way that he actually gets it on the low block and give people face-up jab jumper, the way he's able to stretch the floor. Like, show something unique. It was so boring.
Thank you, Perk. I appreciate it. And look, we are not done yet. Hold on a sec. We are not done yet. Who wants to make some more money? Coming up after the break, we are going to look at some of the best bets for my guy Kyrie's season debut. You are going to want to stay tuned because we got some money makers for you.
Set my spirit free 2 times. Now we get free to release those lies.
To the ongoing saga of Kyrie Erving. They put Erving on ice.
Again, this is a choice that Kyrie had.
The last thing I wanted to create was more distractions or more hoopla.
Sean Marks did say that the door is open if the situation changes, if the circumstances change.
Kyrie Erving will begin the process of returning to the first place Nets.
The Nets organization, they made a decision. They want to win a championship.
Oh, he's a machine! What a breakdown from Kyrie Irving.
He loves to play. He loves being out there with his teammates. Can't wait to see him out there.
And obviously, we love to have Kyrie back. You know, he's a special talent.
This is always where I wanted to be. I wanted to be playing with the team in whatever capacity I can do that.
He's back. Kyrie Irving will make his season debut tonight in Indianapolis. I'm Malika Andrews, and we have his return fully covered right here on NBA Today. So the Nets' big three of Kyrie, KD, and Harden will share the basketball court for the first time in 214 days. And last season, when that happened, Brooklyn, they win 11-3. And remember, Kyrie is coming off a season in which he became just the fourth player in NBA history to average a 25 a game while shooting 50, 40, 90, and joining elite company by doing that in Bird, Durant, and Curry. So now I'm excited to bring in our Nets beat reporter, Nick Friedel. So Nick, you were at shoot-around this morning. What did Steve Nash have to say about how he's going to handle Kyrie Irving tonight?
Malika, Nash said that Kyrie would play a big chunk of the game. He looks like his old self, so the guess is he's going to play around 25 or 30 minutes. But it was very clear in talking to LaMarcus Aldridge, in hearing what was being said internally in the organization, everybody feels like he looks like the guy who can return this team back to feeling whole again. So whatever he gives them tonight, they know a few more weeks from now, once he knocks off the rust, he's going to be in a much better place.
Well, absolutely. And what kind of lift does his return give a Nets team that's lost 3 in a row here?
It's gigantic. Aldridge told us a couple hours ago, he looks like his old self, and he looks like the guy that we all know. And KD said the other day, Malika, and this is crucial, I asked him, how do you keep the continuity when you know that Kyrie's only playing in half the games? And he looked at me and he's like, are you kidding me? Have you watched him play? This guy is a master. They know with Kyrie on the floor, they're a legit title contender again. And that belief is permeating throughout a locker room that is looking for a lot of answers right now with the way they've been playing. So even though he's only going to be out there for half the games, they know the emotional jolt that he'll give them tonight and moving forward the next few months is going to be huge.
And it's a much needed jolt, Nick. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure we're going to be seeing you on the 6 o'clock Sports Center just a little bit later. So Steve Nash, he said that Kyrie is going to be playing a chunk tonight. That's the phrase he used as I'm joining my pal Richard Jefferson at the desk. So Richard, to you.
Did you call me a pal? Man,
just for now.
New Year's, new her.
New Year's, same me. But okay. For you, what would be a successful debut for Kyrie Irving?
I think just slowly acclimating him to what they're doing. And this is unprecedented. We haven't seen this, not only in NBA history, we haven't seen this in sports history, not in modern day, where a player is basically a part-time player. So I think for Kyrie to have just a successful outing is just being there, just being on the court with his team, feeling that energy and just getting acclimated to what they're trying to accomplish.
Big perk. Kendrick Perkins coming in now. Our friend, absolutely on that one. Do you agree with what Richard's saying?
I do, but why are you trying to be so dramatic about it? Like, okay, it's part-time, but it's still basketball. At the end of the day, Kyrie Irving is just one of those guys that you could just drop anywhere in America and he's going to hoop. He could roll out of the bed, he's going to hoop. He don't have to train. That's who Kyrie Irving is. So at the end of the day, look, one thing I do love is I love what the Brooklyn Nets are doing right now because they're thinking about the long haul, meaning they're getting their team adjusted to Kyrie only playing part-time, which is a good thing because we already know when the postseason come, having them part-time on the road is going to be huge because you have Kevin Durant and James Harden who should be able to take care of home, and role players play better at home. So I'm with Richard Malika, but I just don't know why he's so extra with it. Like,
you and me
don't
both.
have to be that extra, dog.
You and me both. But it's no secret, Perk, right, that when Kyrie plays, he's one of the best players in the NBA. But does him being back in a part-time role, not looking at the playoffs yet, does it fix anything that's ailing the Nets right now?
Absolutely. I mean, look, the Nets are on a 3 or 4 game losing streak.
3.
It seemed like they have lost their identity. So, you know, at the end of the day, when I look at Kyrie coming back, it just could bring new life. You know what I mean? And now they don't have to answer those questions or worry about if he's coming back. So just him returning part-time, I think is great for the Brooklyn Nets.
This is awesome. But one thing that we can't just say it's great to have Kyrie back. The NBA loves him. This team loves him. Like, he is a person that the basketball community is excited to get back for the culture. But let's not act like there's not going to be complications here. There will be complications. Let's say hypothetically something happens and Kyrie Irving, doesn't play in a homestand, but then let's say he just tweaks his ankle a little bit and then he's forced to miss 2 or 3 road games. Now all of a sudden you don't have Kyrie for 2 weeks and then he comes back for two road games, and then they have a 3-game homestand. There are a lot more complications to come. So we can sit here and say we're excited to have Kyrie back. The Nets are excited to get Kyrie back, but let's just not make it seem like, oh, well, they got him for the next, 30 home games.
Yeah.
That's not the case. There's more complications to be had, but this is a step in the right direction. Correct, Perk?
Yeah, I mean,
you need to fix your attitude.
That's early. It's